Hello, everyone. We are going to wait just a couple minutes to get started here. Make sure we get everybody in the meeting room before we get started. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Modernizing Data Protection with HPE, Zerto, and AdviseX. In the next hour, you will hear from industry-leading experts on your preparation for ransomware attacks and cyber resilience. This will be recorded and we'll send it out to everyone attending after the meeting. If you have any questions during the meeting, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them as soon as we possibly can. To get things started, I'm going to hand it off to John Latshaw, the Chief Innovation Officer here at AdviseX.
Thanks, Tori. Morning, everybody. First, I want to say this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, as I've had up close and personal experience with ransomware twice in my career. That's two more times than I would like to have it, but it is what it is. And if you've been, doing this for any amount of time, you know that at some point you will get breached and you will have to deal with the fallout. So what a product like Zerto enables you to do is quickly and seamlessly and easily recover. Now, for me personally, both times we recovered quickly with minimal downtime in one case. Another case with zero downtime, we're able to back out, recover, very little damage. So knock on wood, everything was great. But what we want to do today is just talk about some of the benefits of something like continuous data protection like Zerto. Next slide. So I want to introduce AdviseX first. Those of you who aren't familiar with us, we've been around for 50 years, 5 decades, pivoted a number of times as the environments and technology has changed over those 5 decades. But mainly, the main reason we're successful and we're still around and we're thriving is our philosophy of customers for life, right? So we have a 97% retention rate, and that is due to our other overriding philosophy of doing whatever it takes to make the customer successful. Next slide. So we organize our offerings around 5 pillars, and you can think, artificial intelligence, and everybody needs to have an artificial intelligence offering, or else you're just not relevant these days. But really, what underpins that is data. So we focus on having a solid data practice, helping companies get their data organized in order, so that you can layer a good artificial intelligence build on top of that. We offer everything as a service. So you think of whether you want a cloud experience, whether you want network as a service as a service, compute as a service, we offer it. And we strive to really take the friction out of the IT experience for our customers. Adaptive infrastructure. It's generally self-explanatory, but it scales. We offer solutions that scale according to our customers' needs, both up and down cloud operations. So everyone loves the experience of cloud, but in a lot of cases, we found that not everything can or should go in the cloud. And so for those things that a customer wants to be in a hybrid operating model, we are there to facilitate and help them adapt to that. And lastly, but definitely not least, network and security. So very strong competencies around networking, zero trust, next-gen firewall, identity and access management. Next slide. So I pulled together some interesting statistics on this topic, and it's really around a focus, dual lens on ransomware and disaster recovery, and they kind of go hand in hand because, frankly, I've been doing this for at least 2 decades, probably more, and really the real disaster, a very common disaster you're going to encounter is going to be something like a cyber attack, right? How do you recover from that? And so that is kind of the intersection I want to talk about, which is what happens when you get hit with ransomware. And these are industry statistics pulled from Gartner, Forrester, McKinsey, other sources. So you can go look them up yourself just to check if anything doesn't sound reasonable. However, 24 days is the average downtime after a ransomware attack. So, getting real close to a month there. $5,600 per minute is the average cost of downtime for a company. Now, obviously, that varies widely. It could be much lower than that for a smaller company. It could be much greater than that for a larger company. When you multiply those two things together, what that works out to is $193 million is the cost of an average ransomware attack in terms of impact to company output and production. 23% of businesses never test their DR plan. I think personally, in my experience, that's higher, but we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. 2.73 million is the average ransom paid. Now, when you think about the previous number of $193 million of downtime, you can see 2.73 is actually kind of a bargain if you can shave some days off of that downtime. $40 million is the largest ransomware payout. Little asterisk on that. 70 million is the highest ransom demand. 13% year-over-year increase in ransomware attacks. And then the last one was a little surprising to me, but and then I thought about it for a little while, and okay, that does make sense. So if you are attacked by ransomware, if you're successfully compromised by ransomware, word spreads, right? You're going to get targeted again and again and again. So 80% of ransomware victims are repeatedly targeted. So with all that in mind, it seems like a solution like Zerto would be really cheap insurance on, hey, if we do get compromised and somebody's going to click on a link, right? Despite all of your best internal education, don't click on the link. If you don't know the sender, don't click on anything. Somebody's going to do it. They're going to open up an attachment. They're going to do something. And then you need to go to plan B, which is how quickly can we recover from it? So with that, I'll turn it over.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Great presentation. So I just want to introduce myself real quick. Justin Windsor. I lead all of our partner business, but exclusive for public sector. But Reason I wanted to join and kind of hop in here today and kind of speak is just, first and foremost, just to kind of, further the point and our belief about Advisex. They are one of our flagship partners. If you're interested in anything you hear today, they will be able to give you best possible pricing. They also are certified technically on Zerto, so we find that huge benefit. Not only are our customers getting technology knowledge and services from us, but also our partners. They're local. They're in the New England area as well as Florida. And then really, I really love the second and third slide, John, that you presented. They really do have a pulse on technology and really understanding where the currents are going kind of in a much more proactive manner. And that proactiveness is exactly what, we try to, preach here at Zerto, right? In the sense that we know every single customer at some point will have downtime. And we're really trying to elevate that to say that, hey, you are going to have downtime, but you are now kind of in control of that. And again, before I throw it over to Neil, I handle a lot of public sector accounts. So I'm talking to customers day in and day out, talking to partners day in and day out. And while downtime has a monetary amount, right? And for example, we have United Airlines as one of our customers. For every hour they're down, that front end database, it costs them $1 million per hour. But my primary focus, again, public sector wise, is talking to customers about, hey, what are those top applications that if you're down for an hour, you're getting a phone call? And what applications are public facing that services are down and human life it will be affected, whether that's students, patients, et cetera. So again, that's the world we kind of live in, and just want to kind of interject in our beliefs about Advisex, and then I'll throw it over to Neil to talk a little bit more about what we have here at Zerto from HPE.
Thanks, Justin. So I wanted to set the stage here on this slide with three key challenges that we've identified when speaking to customers about disaster recovery and cloud complexity that they've encountered. We already talked a little bit about cyber threats and what that can cost in terms of downtime. But we wanted to also cover some other things that to think about, like unplanned disruptions with natural disasters and hardware failures, as well as cloud complexity in terms of moving to the cloud, with all of the different vendors and complexities and knowledge that's required. When we talk about continuous availability, we're talking about a lot of different things, not just the resilience to ransomware, but also that mobility between clouds and within clouds, as well as disaster recovery from unplanned events, be it what it is. And Zerto really is the industry leader in that, which I'll talk about a bit in a moment, in terms of reducing that time to recovery, as well as allowing you to have a lot of granularity in terms of the recovery points available. You'll see at the bottom here the number of different clouds and different hypervisors that Zerto will work with. So a little bit of background in terms of who Zerto is. We've been around, the industry leader in continuous data protection for over a decade now. One of the key features of this is that it's a software-only solution. So it works on the hypervisor level or the cloud level when talking about a public cloud, where it is software only, does not require any specialized hardware, specialized versions, anything like that, in order to allow that continuous data protection. So it's really flexible. It's always on, without having particular lock-in to a certain vendor. We appreciate it at HPE if you used all of our hardware all the time, but we allow you to use any sort of cloud and hardware that you have already in a true hybrid manner. So another feature of Zerto is the recovery points of seconds. So every few seconds a new checkpoint is taken, which we'll cover in a minute, which can be used to recover your data from in a consistent manner. So that allows you to go back to that point right before the disaster happens in order to recover with minimum data loss. And the other key piece of that is the time it actually takes to recover and get back up and running. And so that is orchestrated and done within several minutes of clicking that, disaster button for whether it's a individual VM or file up to an entire data center that you need to recover. Key to that is the orchestration that's done under the hood with Zerto. So one of the key features of the continuous data protection is that it's constantly um, or it's pre-staged, I guess you could say. So you're setting up these protection groups with Zerto, which has all of your instructions for what to do when you click that button. So all the networking, all of the storage, where you're recovering to, the boot order of your virtual machines, etc., as well as all of the data is already pre-staged on that recovery site. So when you click the button, it's orchestrated for you in that plan that you already have in place. People have very complex run books to be able to get back up and running. This at least automates a large portion of that run book that's required to get back up and running. So another feature which is key and leverages that is the failover testing technology. So you can, in a non-disruptive way, test your failovers ahead of time. Some people even do it every day, but most of our customer, I'd say, will run a failover test at least bi-yearly to make sure that when they do click that button, all of their applications are working as they expect in that disaster recovery site, and that everything is able to actually run and test that DR plan for when that disaster happens. Because your DR, if you have these green boxes as you see in our interface here, it's only as good as the box. If you're not certain that it's going to be working as expected when you click that button, it's basically useless. So one thing that I actually love about Zerto is the flexibility in terms of how customers use it. I mean, I've been working with this product for almost a decade now, and I'm still surprised by some of the use cases that people come up with in terms of how to use it. But key to that is that you can replicate between multiple sites, be it, two on-premise sites or even within a single on-prem site, or you can replicate to the cloud or to multiple clouds or to a private cloud and the public cloud. There's a lot of flexibility in terms of where you're replicating, and you can really achieve that offsite, multiple recovery sites, offline, immutable, all of the different aspects of modern data protection that's required now for disaster recovery. You see at the bottom again the list of available options for recovery. That's just a partial list even. So we won't go too deep into the architecture, but one of the key features of Zerto is what's called the journal, which is really that history of all the recovery points that you can roll back to in the event of a disaster. So, every 5-10 seconds at the most, there is a recovery point of your uh, what you're protecting, the virtual machines, the group of virtual machines, the application that you can restore from. So when the disaster hits, in this example at 10 o'clock, you can rewind to 5 seconds before that and recover with Zerto. Whereas with a more traditional snapshotting or backup method, you may lose 4, 10, 24 hours of data to recover to whatever your last checkpoint was. And as we'll talk about in a minute, that may not even be consistent in terms of the application that you're trying to recover. The other key piece that we'll talk about in a few minutes is this detection functionality. Zerto operates by intercepting all of the writes that are happening on your protected virtual machines. So with that technology, we can run an algorithm that detects anomalous behavior. So it sets up a baseline of, your normal day-to-day IO stream, and it can detect using fancy math that I can't quite explain, anomalous encryption that happened on those protected VMs and alert and generate a checkpoint that specifically targets when that anomaly occurred to allow you to recover right before that. So this slide is just demonstrating that traditional backup is not disaster recovery. It's a very different technology. And with traditional backup, it may take several hours to back up all of the VMs that comprise a particular application. In this example, we have a pretty standard application with an app server, web server, DB server, and file server. And in this example, it's showing that those VMs, they may all be protected, but it's across several hours of a snapshot. So when you go to recover that data, it will not be consistent, meaning it may take several more hours after that recovery to get a working application. With Zerto, which I'll talk about, it maintains the consistency across the group that comprises the application. So that's something that a lot of traditional VM or storage-based recovery cannot do. So this is showing the same application protected. You'll see snapshots or checkpoints every 5 seconds that are taken of this application, which ensure what in fancy terms is called write order fidelity across all of the virtual machines within that application group. Meaning that every write that's occurring, the order in which that write's occurring is stored within our checkpoint in the Zerto journal. So when you do recover from that, you can ensure that that application is consistent and will be working as it was that exact moment in time that you recover from. So if you recover from 10 seconds before the disaster occurred, the application will look exactly like it looked 10 seconds before that disaster occurred without having to do additional work. Beyond that, you can also do that across multiple hosts if you're talking about a vCenter environment, as well as multiple points of storage, multiple data stores. So a lot of our customers will have a particularly chatty database, for example, that will allow them to keep that database using affinity rules on the particular host on the particular storage and still maintain that consistency across the group when they go to recover it later. You don't have to worry about staggered backup windows and job schedules to try to maximize that point in time. That's all happened under the hood automatically with Zerto. So Zerto integrates with a lot of different solutions. So the key ones there are AWS and Microsoft Azure. It allows you to do the standard Zerto continuous data protection either to or from those clouds, as well as within those clouds if you prefer. So a lot of flexibility there. And it also leverages the immutability options that are inherent within those solutions, the APIs that exist to keep an immutable copy of the journal for longer term recovery within those solutions. Also, not only does it support, your typical on-prem VMware, but it also supports cloud versions of VMware running within public clouds, which are attractive to certain customers as well. And then the most recent option that was added is the HPE GreenLake platform, which we call disaster recovery. We'll go into in a moment, but it's GreenLake for disaster recovery, which gives you a single control plane to control multiple DR sites using Zerto. So a little bit more about GreenLake for disaster recovery. Uses Zerto under the hood, so it's exactly the same technology, that continuous data protection, that fast recovery, that low recovery time, but with this simple SaaS delivered control plane, meaning that when new features are rolled out, they can just be pushed through this SaaS delivery, access through this unified Green Lake platform that you use to manage your storage, your compute, your networking, etc. And managed right there, setting up protection groups, doing your failovers, your failover tests, recovering to the cloud, all those features right here. And as more features get added, they get pushed out, without you having to do any upgrades or anything like that, in this control plane. So really cool feature that's been added, and a good leveraging of our integration into the Hewlett Packard Enterprise world. So this is a good example of Zerto being used at scale in the real world. So a lot of customers, or a lot of other vendors, I should say, claim a similar RPO, recovery point, to Zerto. But really, at scale, it gets more and more difficult to maintain that low RPO, that low recovery point objective. However, we've had customers, for years now, that are replicating thousands of virtual machines, maintaining that low recovery point, and really using our at scale, with those failover tests, with that, assurance that they can recover thousands of virtual machines without taking days or weeks, that it may take other products to accomplish. So I wanted to pivot a little bit towards what we call the cyber resilience vault, and talk a bit about what is cyber recovery, what is cyber resilience. It really leverages our existing Zerto technology, along with some industry leading technology that's inherited from the newest HPE hardware. I won't go too far into the architecture, but this will at least give you an idea of what the cyber resilience vault is. So, key challenges with cyber recovery. Disaster recovery has been good for a long time, but as we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, cyber attacks have a very different control plane, a very different attack pattern. So when you're trying to determine what happened in the cyber attack, you don't necessarily know everything that occurred. You don't know when that disaster happened. You don't know what it's affecting, what the blast radius is, and or even like what the checkpoint is that you need to recover from to ensure that you can run those applications. Beyond that, these things, these events, as was talked about, often take days, weeks, months to recover from. So, customers, governments, industries have to determine what is an acceptable amount of downtime before, they stop being a going concern. A lot of customers, a lot of people go out of business. A lot of businesses go out of business after hitting a cyber attack. And so it's very important to think about these things in terms of, in the worst case scenario, how can I recover the business and still be operating the next day? So we have here the NIST cybersecurity framework of identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. We've really taken that as the framework that we're working with to try to build this full stack solution using Zerto and the Cyber Vault. So some more scary statistics here about ransomware. 94% of ransomware attacks also try to compromise the backups. So, these gangs are getting very smart. I think of them as sort of one of us, one of the IT professionals who sort of broke bad, and so we know where the bodies are buried, and they go after the weaknesses within your system, and that's why it's very pivotal to set up a zero trust architecture, system that can't be compromised in terms of being able to recover. And so, in that vein, they will go after your backups, go after your ability to recover. And of those people whose backups were compromised, they often end up having to pay the ransom, or if even if they didn't pay the ransom, the recovery cost is 8 times more, because they may have to go to some kind of tape, they may have to rebuild from scratch, do all kinds of crazy stuff that will take weeks or months. I mean, there's plenty of stories out there. It's not hard to find things like a Colonial Pipeline that had to rebuild a lot of their infrastructure from scratch. So with Zerto and with the Cyber Resilience Vault, this you'll recognize looks kind of familiar to that NIST framework. We use that replication and detection feature that I spoke about briefly before, where it is able to detect real-time anomalies in encryption that happen within your stream of data. So it's able to identify those points in time that you may have to recover from in the event of a disaster. We also use immutability features with what's called a cyber resilience vault. So in that worst case scenario where not only your production is compromised, but also your DR, your backups, everything is compromised, you still have that insurance policy where you can recover from a immutable zero trust vault that's running your key pieces of infrastructure that you can recover from, that's air gapped and unable to be attacked by a typical cyber event. Beyond that, like I spoke about before, without knowing that you can test your solution, it's basically worthless. I mean, you have to know not only what to do, but that it will work when you click that button in that worst case scenario. So we allow you to do this testing ability within that air gapped recovery framework, and allow flexible options for recovery, whether you're shipping the recovery back to your original production hardware or you're running within this cyber vault in the real worst case scenario. There's a lot of options that are available. So this is just showing what the replication and detection feature looks like in reality. So this is the recovery wizard for one protection group using Zerto. You'll see, let me get the laser pointer here. Every 5 seconds or so, we're generating a checkpoint. But in this case, our algorithm determined that there was a suspicious activity at this point in time. So there was a change in entropy, so to speak, which caused this to be flagged, and it threw an alert. So now the person who's responsible for getting that alert and remediating came in and found that there was indeed encryption, but they don't know exactly when it occurred. This will give them that point in time where that activity occurred, based on our algorithm. And then it will allow them to see, that checkpoint right before that clean checkpoint that they can recover from before that event occurred, before that change in encryption, and recover, as close as possible with the minimum data loss to that checkpoint. So some key features of the Cyber Vault. It's an isolated air gap solution. So it's using zero trust architecture, HPE hardware. If you're familiar with normal storage technology, you can set up air gapping over RCIP, which actually uses a couple of Aruba switches. But needless to say, it lets you recover in that worst case scenario where your backup and all your disaster recovery and everything is compromised, and you just need to be able to recover that last copy. Sure, you could do that from something like tape, but that could take days or weeks to get back up and running. This lets you get back up and running, within hours of that event, and be able to test in real time and run scans and ensure that what you're restoring is actually clean before you put it back in production. So some statistics that were run compared to other cyber resilience vault solutions, a lot of them use cloud to store the data. And while they do eventually get you your data back, it can take days or even weeks to recover that data. And it's going to be significantly out of date by the time you recover it. Whereas with Zerto, we're leveraging our existing journal and continuous data protection capabilities along with this additional immutability feature to be able to recover that data in several hours versus that days or weeks. So when we talk about the amount of downtime that can be tolerated before, someone goes out of business, the real worst case scenario, that this is what we're talking about. If you can't tolerate millions or billions of dollars of data loss, this is what you need to be able to recover in that worst case scenario, which is becoming increasingly more common, unfortunately. So one customer that implemented this solution, more and more, this is actually cyber resilience and cyber recovery is actually becoming a requirement of insurance and also regulators. And one of our customers who implemented this realized that they were actually out of compliance with their existing cyber recovery solution. So, they would have 12 to 24 hours of data loss, and should that worst case scenario occur, it would take them weeks to recover, which is pretty typical as we've seen in the stats. So they could not pass their compliance with that solution. Whereas once they implemented the cyber resilience vault, they now have hours of recovery time with minimal data loss, which not only meets but exceeds the requirements for their compliance. So I'll pass it over to Lynette to go over some examples of success.
Great. Thanks, Neil. So good morning, everyone. Lynette Strachey. I'm in channel sales here at Zerto. So I complement my colleague, Justin Windsor, who was speaking earlier. He covers Advisex from a public sector perspective. I am on the enterprise and commercial side, working with Advisex with our corporate customers. So, I wanted to share, a joint success story, right? Just to put everything that John and Neil have been, speaking about kind of in a real life example. We've been working with Advisex for years. The geos, the size of company, the verticals that we cover with them, span, everything that everyone that's on here, right, probably represents, from manufacturing to finance to healthcare. But I wanted to highlight this healthcare example because, it's, I think we can all agree, right? If applications are down within a healthcare organization, right, that's all something that, scares us to death, right? If you've been to the emergency room, if you've had a need for urgent care, imagine going to your healthcare provider and not being able to, be seen, have a procedure, have a screening, have an X-ray because they're undergoing a ransomware attack, their systems are down, and there's no way for them to actually treat or care for you, right? So when we have customers like this who come to us, so this particular healthcare organization, you can see, on the larger side, they're based in New York. They actually are a comprehensive cancer research and care facility. And they came to us because they were really concerned about their ability to recover from ransomware. As we all know, cyber gangs and criminals are targeting healthcare organizations because they know they can't assume any type of downtime. Epic cannot go down. People cannot not be admitted into the hospital, right? They are at the mercy of cyber criminals in terms of, potentially paying a ransom. This particular customer knew that, went to Advisex for, counsel, brought us into the opportunity essentially because Advisex knew, based on what the customer had embedded, had the incumbent replication mobility tool was, right, that we would be able to ensure recoverability of all their most critical apps, right? So right at the start, business challenges, lack of confidence, having patient care at risk, right? What I noted before, not being able to take customers in, provide screenings, get them in front of doctors, continue their care, very much a fear and a challenge for this particular organization. In addition to that, so we're not talking dollars, we're talking patient care, we're talking being able to affect lives. There is the business side too, right? They also realized that they were not in compliance. The healthcare organization, they were audited. They had to show that they performed DR tests, that they were successful, and that they were able to recover. They weren't able to do that with their embedded technology. Then also taking a look at the future, they realized that they were limited by their current technology stack, right? They were wanting to potentially go to the cloud. They were wanting to bring in potentially, other hypervisors, things of that nature. Again, the embedded technology was limiting them in terms of what they could do. So both teams sat down, right, discussed what the future state needed to look like, what they needed their organization to be able to accomplish, ensuring the availability of all their electronic health records, absolutely a priority. Protecting against continuous threats. I think John had a great slide there of, the top unfortunate facts about ransomware. And absolutely, 80% of those who have been attacked will be targeted and will be compromised yet again. There's obviously weaknesses in that particular technology stack. It's difficult to really find them, sew them up, and get them solidified, in time for, round 2 or round 3 of a ransomware attack. Obviously, it's an organization that wanted to preserve their reputation in addition to serving their clients. So that was a priority, and really meet and exceed what the SLAs. I'm sure everybody on this call has SLAs with their businesses. What are the SLAs of your critical business applications? What type of recovery time objective? What type of required? They were wanting to have zero downtime, right, in order to meet that patient care, total availability within their organization, as well as meeting compliance, right? So what would they be able to do as an organization to ensure that they weren't taking what revenue they did have and putting it to fines and, failed audits and things of that nature, and then also giving them the ability to optimize their spend across their data protection stack. And Zerto and Advisix can help with all of this, right? So once they moved to Zerto, they were actually able to achieve a recovery point objective of seconds. And what we mean by that is they were with Zerto, you can roll back time. You can roll back to a point before the incident, before the ransomware attack, in order to start and resume operations from a clean point. They were able to do that. Their recovery time objectives, how long it actually took them to be back up and running and have their critical applications accessible to them, took hours, not days or weeks as they had anticipated. And obviously they were able to, safeguard, their patients by having availability to those applications. They were actually able to also deal with any other kind of DR scenarios, whether it be, failed hardware, bad updates, things of that nature. And they found it very simple to use and really found a way to optimize their investments and future-proof themselves for moving forward, right? So at this point, they were on-prem to on-prem. They were very much in that world. I was going to say physical, but it was on-prem to on-prem. But now with the deployment of Zerto, they're able to leverage multi and hybrid cloud as well to diversify their strategy. And one of the reasons I, highlighted this particular customer. So this is a newer customer of Advisix and Zerto's. We actually signed them up, in January 2024. They quickly deployed. They started using our solutions, and then in the last 10 months, they've actually decided, as a result of CrowdStrike, right? So obviously, everybody knows what happened there. That yes, the 300 VMs that they're protecting now are critical, but there's also other applications that they find that are susceptible. So now they're protecting those as well. So within 10 months of the first deployment, they've actually come back. They're doubling down and protecting a larger environment because of the success that they've seen with Advisix and Zerto. So Thank you for your time this morning. Hopefully that resonated with some of you. And, if you do have needs in this area, please reach out. Partnership. We've been doing this together for years, and we can definitely add value to your environments as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, John.
Thank you. So hopefully you found this interesting, informative, and compelling. Love to see everyone just raise their hand and schedule a 30-minute demo, and we'll show you actually how this works, walk you through it. It's real. It does perform as advertised. I can attest to that. So love to see everybody. Just shoot us an email or reach out if you're an existing customer to your AE and get something scheduled.
I think we have time for questions if anyone has one about we covered.